When Chelsea needed a goal, they looked for Drogba. When Ivory Coast needed a leader, they looked for Drogba. And when pressure crushed everyone else, Drogba somehow seemed to grow stronger. Football has produced many great strikers. Football has produced many great goal scorers. But very few players have carried the weight that Didier Drogba carried. Because Drogba wasn't remembered simply for scoring goals. He was remembered because when everything was on the line, people trusted him. Born in Abidjan, Ivory Coast, in 1978, Drogba's journey to greatness was far from straightforward. Unlike many football superstars, he wasn't the wonder kid everybody talked about. He wasn't the teenage sensation dominating headlines. His rise was slower, harder, less certain. While others seemed destined for greatness, Drogba had to fight for every step forward. Perhaps that's why pressure never frightened him. Because by the time success arrived, he had already learned how to struggle. His early years in France were spent working his way through the football pyramid. No shortcuts, no guarantees, just determination. And eventually football began to notice. At Marseille, Drogba exploded onto the European stage. Defenders bounced off him. Supporters admired him. Opponents feared him. Power, speed, aggression, finishing. He had everything. Yet nobody could have predicted what was about to happen next. In 2004, José Mourinho brought Drogba to Chelsea. It wasn't love at first sight. Some supporters questioned the transfer fee. Some doubted whether he could succeed in England. But Mourinho saw something others didn't. He saw a player built for moments. And over the next 8 years, Drogba became Chelsea's man for the moment. Again. And again. Some footballers score goals in ordinary matches. Drogba seemed to save his best moments for the biggest occasions. FA Cup finals, League Cup finals, title deciders, European nights. The bigger the stage became, the better Drogba played. It became almost expected. When Chelsea reached a final, Drogba would score. When Chelsea needed a leader, Drogba would appear. When Chelsea looked beaten, Drogba would find a way. Former teammate Frank Lampard once described him as the ultimate big-game player. Chelsea supporters already knew that, because they had watched him deliver time after time. Yet one night stands above all the others. Munich, the Champions League final. Chelsea had waited more than a century. 107 years of history. One dream. One final chance. The problem was that the final was being played in Bayern Munich's own stadium. The crowd was against them. The odds were against them. And time was running out. Chelsea were losing. The dream was slipping away. Then came a corner. Juan Mata delivered the ball into the box. And rising above everyone else was Didier Drogba. The header crashed into the net. Chelsea were alive. One moment. One goal. One man. Of course it was Drogba. Extra time followed. Then penalties. The entire football club holding its breath. The final penalty belonged to one player. The player Chelsea trusted most. Drogba. He stepped forward. Calm. Focused. Certain. The ball hit the net. Chelsea became champions of Europe. And fittingly, the greatest night in Chelsea's history belonged to the man who had delivered so many of their greatest moments. But as remarkable as Munich was, it may not have been the most important thing Drogba ever did. Because footballers often told they can change games. Drogba helped change lives. In 2005, Ivory Coast qualified for their first World Cup. The country celebrated. But behind the celebrations was a nation divided by civil war. Families separated. Communities fractured. Hope fading. After qualification was secured, Drogba spoke directly to the people of Ivory Coast. Not as a footballer, not as a celebrity, as a leader. He appealed for peace, for unity, for reconciliation. Millions listened. And in the years that followed, many credited that moment as one of the symbols that helped bring people together during an incredibly difficult period. Think about that. Most footballers dream of winning trophies. Didier Drogba helped unite a nation. That achievement will always matter more than any medal. Across his career, Drogba won Premier League titles, FA Cups, League Cups, and the Champions League. He scored hundreds of goals. He became one of Africa's greatest footballers. But statistics alone cannot explain Drogba. Because Drogba represented something bigger than football. Strength, leadership, responsibility, belief. Chelsea supporters remember the goals. Ivory Coast remembers the leader. Football remembers the legend. Because Didier Drogba wasn't simply a great striker. He was the man everyone trusted when everything was on the line. And perhaps there is no greater compliment than that. That is why Drogba will always remain a true footballing icon. Not simply because he scored. Not simply because he won. But because when the pressure was highest, people believed in Drogba. What is your favorite Drogba memory?